Aside from protest art like this, what other type of art do you like to dabble in?
Well, for example, right now we live in the United States where we have a lot of problem with police and our
Police brutality.
right? Especially with people of color and minority communities. Ever since I heard about Trayvon Martin and Tamir Rice, I was involving in Black Lives Matter the best I can. You know, as a diaspora African myself, I have to share the pain and the struggle that our African American brothers are going through, and I am a big
supporter
of that
because the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yes, and also like when I enjoy my rights, I know where they are,
who
paying for.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So it's my time to step up and contribute. So because of that, I did a show with a group of artists called Black Lives Matter, Humanity is Not Negotiable. The paintings that I did informed by this interview that I heard in NPR. A lady called Constance Rice. She used to sue the LA Police Department for some of the action that they do to black people and stuff like that. And then the city invited her to help them. And one of the things she did was interviewing all the white officers and
who had been involved in activities that are...
Yes. And what she found out is most of the people were afraid of black men. So the first thing that came to their mind is going to force. We see that in Philando Castile's case, for example, when he pulled them over, he said, you know, they look like they come from robbery.
Right.
So that means they already have that perception of who we are.
Right.
So what I did is my painting shows like a mugshot of one of them are me, and then two other people. Now we're expanding it. I'm working on that.
Two black people?
Yes. And then they hold the mugshot as if they're arrested, but the mugshot said, father, artists.
To humanize or demystify the idea of a black man as being not a violent person.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you take time and see that, you probably see more about it. If I see myself in a mugshot, million of ideas come back.
How do these two movements connect for you? What do you see as some of the similarities between the Oromo protest, people protesting against land grabbing and whatever the master plan, and the Black Lives Matter movement in the U.S.? These two of them are very much connected to you as a person, as an artist, and as a musician.
And also, I also wanted to point out the Oromo protest caused Amhara protest, because Amhara people from Ethiopia said we die beside our Oromo brothers and sisters, caused another protest called Amhara protest. So I want that to be also there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it is actually the response from Ethiopian people for the violation of human rights by the government. And Oromo protest is the starting point, but it did not end in Oromo protest. It went to Amhara protest, and more than 100 people killed in Gondar just because of it. So their life was exactly the same, and the cause they stand up for have the same issue and values for me, regardless of where they are from. Because we're not just saying or just protect Oromo rights. We're just saying respect human rights for everybody.
Right.
That said, the relationship I see from Black Lives Matter and Oromo protest is exactly that. There is a lack of human rights. It doesn't matter if it's Tamir Rice plays with a toy gun and getting killed, or if a little kid going around in Ethiopia and from a school and getting shot. At the crux of it, the center of it, there is a human rights violation. So there is that relationship to me. You know, even if the causes are different, there is a lack of human rights. Some of the things that's happening, for example, when shooting happens and you see American media, there is a lack of sense of understanding that person as a person. Usually, we talk about
you dehumanize somebody before you take their life, I guess.
Exactly. And then even when we talk about it afterward, it is about the kids. It's never been about the father.
About the person. Right.
So it's our responsibility, especially the artist's responsibility, to show that human face, humanize the victims in a way that's lacking in the media, in a way that's lacking in the entire conversation. We have to bring that forward. And that's what I've been doing in Oromo protest, in Amhara protest, in all of them. Just trying to show the human aspect of it.
The faces behind, the lives behind some of these events.
Exactly. When we talk about Irecha, Irecha is another after Oromo protest, while Oromo protest is in the middle, Oromo celebrate Irrecha. It's a Thanksgiving. See, the Irrecha celebration is Thanksgiving celebration. You go to Irrecha and you celebrate nature, basically.
Right.
What happened is there was a chanting in there against the government, and the government started shooting guns on the air and towards people, and helicopters came in. People panicked. There was a lot of stampede that happened, killed a lot of people. So all of a sudden they start talking about, like, you know, this amount of people died, 20 people died.
Right.
They
diminished the value
exactly.
of the people that lost their lives, so even who were affected in one way or another.
Exactly. So at that point, I released a song called Irrecha about a girl which is in her early 20s.
So you took one character.
One character from it. And then her name is Sifan. She came from Ginchi, a small town, to pay respect to God, to her God, because her brother was killed by the government 2 months before that.
During the Oromo protest.
During the Oromo protest. Imagine the amount of pain she carried. She just got married. Some say she's pregnant. She went to the event and she died there too. So now, stop talking about the numbers. Stop talking about the debate who did right, what wrong. But here it is, the future of our country,
right,
just died like that. And artists have this power of humanizing and bringing forward some of the things that's lacking in our discussion. So we see that happening everywhere.
Now, obviously, somebody from Ethiopia would say, or an African official, where some of these human rights abuses are happening, they'll look at you as an artist in the diaspora, an African diaspora artist, and say, you should worry more about what's going on in America. You have no right to be speaking about the human rights abuses in Ethiopia or any other African country.
Well, that would be an interesting thing, because I'm not even going to be here if it's not for the human rights violation to begin with. Most of us leave our country, not just because looking for opportunities, as mostly told. Some of us fled from the government because we're afraid for our safety. So for us to be considered like you're out there, you don't care about it, it's completely against what we are supposed to do in here. If anything, I have more responsibility to speak, because I live in a very peaceful, democratically rightful place, so I can use my exercise and speak for the voiceless back home. So,
but also acknowledge that there are issues going on
exactly,
in America with the Black Lives Matter movement and all those things.
You have to be, because you are a part of the community. We are also here. We have a part of the community, so we have to put our contribution. This said, we're not just talking about the government and bad-mouthing the government thing. If we see something good, we speak with it. If people follow me on social media, they know if I see a street built, I'd say, good job, you build a street. If you make a school, I say, good job, you provide a school. So,
but you will also criticize when something wrong is
exactly,
is
because it lacks that criticism and that.
I guess understanding, there's a lack of understanding that people can be critical, but also do it from love, from a point of love.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly. Well, actually, sometimes the diaspora lack that, because they either be the person who oppose the government, right, or they'll be the supporters, and there is no middle ground. What we need is people who already have this opportunity of learning and knowing, trying to support the good and criticize the bad, but we don't have to be penalized for that. So it is a voice that's continuously pushing governments to do their thing. And now we're asking governments like the United States to look into their involvement in countries like this and the amount of human rights violation when they decide in allocating money and funds. We understand the United States government's right is also considered, because the policy have to be considered, because the United States government have to look for its best interest. But at the same time, I can see we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can also talk about human rights and send a message through our financial and international stages to say that there are some unacceptable things. For example, in Ethiopia, there are a lot of journalists in prison right now. It's unbelievable. Political leaders are in prison just because they made a speech.
First of all, I wanted to understand your style, the style of your art. Is this a type of art specific to your culture? Did you grow up seeing this type of art?
Well, that's a very good question. First of all, I grew up in Ethiopia, so when I grow up in there, there is a lot of arts that influence me. Even it can be in a church, it can be in mostly back home. Artists used to be commissioned to do painting for churches and things like that. You can go to the mosques and you can see some of the designs they do, because Muslims don't do like arts, because it's kind of against the belief of worshiping something. It's not like Christianity where you can put a white Christ or a black Christ, wherever you want. You see a lot of paintings like that in Africa. But most artists are flourishing through the religious aspect of it, so we can see that. I see my paintings picked some color palettes from those, because I can see my color palettes to be rich. But in Africa, as you see, like the dress you wear,
Right.
beautiful.
Absolutely.
Color.
Your painting has some of the colors on this
Stands out.
material that I bought in Liberia.
Exactly, but in Africa, the color, we're not afraid of colors. It's very, I call it a painting of like life. It's just like our spice. If you put a spice on the side and look at it close, or my painting, you see the same kind of color palette. And I'm proud of that, because it just shows where we came from, and we have to keep that. We have to build on that. But I also take a lot from impressionist kind of artists. One of my favorite artists is Jacob Lawrence, and I like the way he paints. He's an African-American painter who passed away, but he used to teach in UW, University of Washington, I worked at, and also he's from New York, and he's one of those Harlem Renaissance part of, I don't know if he's actually that time, but he was also a part of that group.
He was influenced by the Harlem Renaissance.
Yes, and also his work is really amazing. He do like a lot of black faces, a lot of colors. It looks like African art, and he's a very inspiring person. You find big piece of hairs at Howard University at the gallery. They still have the metal thing sitting there. So
I know what you're talking about. Yes.
So I'm inspired with that kind of paintings.
Do your themes, your themes as an artist also, are they reflected in your music?
Exactly. My themes are usually about human rights, and but there are love songs. My music. There are some human rights tinged music too. But at the same time, I want people to listen to it and be relaxed and enjoy it. And there are a song that I wrote for my wife, there are a song that I wrote for my mom, all of these wonderful women that actually, contribute to who I am today. So I can speak different terms through music, but when music hits you, like Bob Marley say, you just feel it. Just once you got, and I'm working with this wonderful producer. His name is Ray Taylor. He was with Culture Band before, and now he's worked with Boogie Brown and Clinton Ferron Band in Seattle. And then another producer, Chris Farley, who lives in Virginia here, is with Culture. And they're amazing group of people that knows reggae for a long time, and I'm just blessed to be able to work with them and take their reggae music and then bring my own writing on top of it. I write most of the songs, but they work on the music, so it kind of fits like hand in glove.
How much support do you get from the local Ethiopian community when it comes to supporting your creativity?
It's really interesting. Now it's changing. I get a lot of support from people that are actually affected by the work I do. So in general, for the African community, arts and artists don't get the respect they deserve.
They didn't get the respect they deserve, right.
But people who are actually touched by my work start supporting me. So for example, when I came here, the Oromo Study Association, very big helper to my success. And there are people who are in Seattle who are the Oromo community that work and making my work to be seen. And there are a lot of private organizations that help me. But I still finance most of it myself. And I'm hoping to get that help if I can. But for me,
it's a passion, regardless of whether you make money from it or not.
Exactly.
You feel like this is your mission in life.
Exactly. And then if anything have to stop me, I'll lose. So for me, that calculation is out of there is nothing that can stop me. As long as I can able to do it, I can do it, because I see the benefit of it. Like For example, if you talk about that girl, Sifan, I heard about her husband called somebody in Saudi Arabia to tell them to say thank you to me because he can't call me directly or something, things like that. You know, like you can see people actually touched by it. A couple of years ago, I did a music for a girl called Hannah. She was adopted from Ethiopia. She came to Seattle, got killed by the people who adopted her, and they are in jail right now.
Do you feel that in this age of social media, African creatives are able to get the kind of exposure that they never used to have previously?
They got some exposure, but I still believe and think and beg our communities to look into African talents and cultivate them. There are a lot of artists that right now, as you know, are coming up, which making a big dent in the world art scene. We were we were basically blocked away from the world for a long time. I remember first time when I went to school, I used to have this professor, her name is Michelle Dunmar. She's an amazing person. She used to teach about graphic design history, and my question to her is, where is my continent?
Right. Where's the African part of that history?
Yeah.
Right.
And to her credit, she went back and find out and added on her curriculum the next year because you can clearly see that Africans are actually erased from this world scene. But now we're here. Now we have to stand up and our community have to support us. And that's how we left a big dent, a mark. And whether it is journalism like you're doing, whether it's writing and singing like I'm doing, all of us have to support each other and actually compensate for the lost time.
African creatives always have the same complaint over and over again, that they don't get love from their people that they get outside.
Yes.
And so you're saying...
I'm saying just go support them and do exactly what you just said. And we are basically, I saw this comment last time, a person said, we hold a lot of African history in our hand. Through art, people can learn a lot of things. And by helping and supporting African artists, we also help ourselves in African history.